Good, hello, we're here with Kiko. We're going to do a sort of tutorial so that whether it's someone just starting out, an intermediate user, or a business owner who wants to know a bit about how their campaigns, their page, their performance are doing, if they're set up optimally, well, today we're going to go step by step. There will be some very basic things, but we want to explain the installation and configuration process well. We are going to focus on campaigns that generate conversions so that the measurement and results of these campaigns are the best possible. Within, well, a campaign has many factors. Kiko is joining us. Kiko is the guru of tagging, conversion tracking, and lots of things. Even though gurus have a bad reputation, Kiko is great. He's an excellent person in the PPC community. I mean, he helps a ton of people. So, well, the goal of this talk with him and these demos, this tutorial we're going to do together, is so that you know it's done with good judgment to help you as much as possible. Right, Kiko? Kiko, if you'd like to say hi. Hello. Hi, everyone. And well, I hope this masterclass, this video, is useful to everyone who watches it. Great, thanks. The first thing we're going to do is go to a page where we don't have anything installed. Well, I had started installing SiteKit, but you've already told me it's a bad option. That's the first lesson. It's a plugin you can install for tracking. All right, so let's remove it. Where's SiteKit? Here it is. Let's deactivate it. So here, and also so people know where to start. I mean, would you start by installing Tag Manager? Is that the first thing we need to do? Logically, for any tracking, the first thing we need to do is install Google Tag Manager, which is a tag management system. From Google Tag Manager, we'll centralize all the tracking, the data capture from our website so we can send it to the platform. In this case, we might see an example for Google Ads, but it could be sent to any platform you want from Google Tag Manager. And to install Tag Manager, what do you recommend? For example, in WordPress, where there are plugins, I recommend either using the simplest method, which would be a header and footer plugin, a plugin that lets you insert scripts into the header, body, or footer of your website, or an advanced plugin that generates a data layer. For example, if we have a site like an online store or a site where we want to capture certain page information, plugins like GTM for WP, GTM for WordPress, or GTM Kit, not to be confused with SiteKit, please, are good because, aside from inserting the Google Tag Manager code itself, they generate a data layer for you. For example, for e-commerce, they generate page information if configured, that valuable data layer that we can then capture with Google Tag Manager and send to platforms through tags. All right, so let's install GTM Kit, which is a bit less known than GTM for WordPress, which is the third one that shows up. Both are good, but maybe GTM Kit has less complexity, fewer tabs to configure, and it's quite solid and lightweight. Perfect, so we'll install this one, all right? It's ready here. We'd need to enter our container, the container code, which is GTM, right? Yes, so people can see this too. Tag Manager is a free application. I mean, here we just need to create our page. In this case, hold on a second. Let's create our container for our page. I want people to see what creating a container is, the whole process. Exactly, even though it's something very simple, just the HTTP, just the domain, or well, the name. Yes, that's really just the name. You don't have to put it. You could name it whatever you want. Here you accept below, and up top we say yes to Google Tag Manager. For people who aren't very familiar with it, as I mentioned earlier, it's a tag manager. It's basically a script we insert into the head of our website and the body, and it allows us to manage all the scripts from there, like the metapixel, the GA4 tag, the Google TikTok tag, etc. It's a manager, as the name suggests, a tag manager. All right, here we've copied our container tag, which starts with GTM-. We come here, paste it, and hit continue. The first option it gives you is whether it includes page, product, and category information. We say yes. This plugin has a very simple setup. Here it asks if you want to share the information, but I never do. I'm that secretive. And here we are, done. Perfect. Yes, pretty convenient, pretty good. I mean, this is correct. There's a warning here about a small bug, saying we haven't inserted the code, but it's actually inserted. is a minor bug in this latest update. If we go, for example, to edit the container within the plugin, got it, in the plugin, yes, we see it's active. Here it gives us two options. Either inject the code or, for example, we could have the option to only generate the data layer. For people with e-commerce sites, if we have the code inserted somewhere else, it would only generate this data layer you mentioned, which has the information we use for triggers and tags. But in principle, our code is injected here, so we shouldn't need to do anything. All right, hit save. Well, if it hasn't saved yet, no, in principle, it's done. It's configured. The first thing we need to do is check that it's actually loaded. We can go back to Google Tag Manager and, by clicking not on the preview, but on the same ID you copied earlier, yes, they added that a while ago, so we can do it right here. We enter our page's address here, a check to see if it's inserted. If by any chance it doesn't show up, we might need to clear the cache or something because it didn't pick it up. But here it's confirming that it's detected the code. Great. So, just to summarize, in principle, we install Tag Manager. Yes, we install Analytics. We'll do that now with Tag Manager. We're going to install our widget to capture leads. So here, when installing Tag Manager, don't use Google Site Kit. They're going to kill me, but oh well, making friends along the way. And you say to use some plugin, not just any plugin, but something like GTM for WordPress or GTM Kit. Yes, GTM 4 WP or GTM Kit. Here, these work quite well with WordPress. If we were on any other platform that wasn't WordPress, say PrestaShop, we'd still need to insert it the same way, either in the code, in the header and body, with the tracking scripts they give us when we create the container, or with some module, or by inserting it through someone with the knowledge to do it, like the person handling maintenance. You just give them instructions about the code they need to insert. Exactly. I mean, this tutorial is for people running ad campaigns or starting to run ad campaigns, as well as people who have a business and a website. What we're saying is that it's also your responsibility to know how things are done at a basic level, so you can tell if they're being done well in your business or not. That's one of the goals of this, even if you don't have advanced knowledge, so that anyone involved in a digital business or managing a website has some minimum knowledge. Because all these tags, whether it's Google Tag Manager or any tag we insert into our site, are part of a business's assets. We mustn't forget that. So, for you, the next step would be installing Analytics. Yes, let's install GA4. Here we have an analytics account. Another important thing, everything we're seeing here is free. I mean, if someone tells us this costs money, that's not true. Analytics is free, Tag Manager is free. These are things that, in principle, shouldn't cost us anything. Plus, the plugins, both of them, don't have premium versions or anything. I mean, they have all the features. Well, I think GTM Kit has added some extras, but they're perfectly functional, and I've never needed to use any premium features. Perfect. So here, what we've done is go to Analytics, Data Streams. Exactly, data streams. And the important thing is not to confuse it with the stream ID. I've seen some tracking projects where they accidentally copied the stream ID and weren't getting any data. Perfect, always copy this code. We go to our Tag Manager account, and before going to the tag, let's go to variables. Because I recommend that instead of inserting the ID repeatedly in every GA4 tag or any other platform tag we create, we use variables. Let me explain the parts of Google Tag Manager. It has tags, which are basically the link between Google Tag Manager and the platforms, the scripts that execute and send information to the platforms, in this case GA4. Then we have triggers, which are the conditions that need to be met for a tag to fire. And finally, we have variables, which are storage for information that we can later use in both triggers and tags. I always recommend that, for example, IDs be put into a variable. In this case, let's create a variable down here at New, and we'll select a constant type variable. Scroll down. Paste the ID here. What do we do with this? We've stored that value, and we'll use it in all the GA4 tags we use in our container. Is that correct? I only use very specific naming conventions, but I admit I'm a bit obsessive. Let's call it GA4 Measurement ID. Let's call things what they are. And another thing I always recommend within Tag Manager containers is to try hit save up there to keep everything organized and use semantics. I mean, the Spanish language is beautiful, languages in general are beautiful, even in English. Use naming conventions so that anyone looking at a container knows what each element means. Try to avoid excessive use of abbreviations and codes, and let's call things by their names. Alright, so we've got that measurement ID that we'll use for the tag. Now let's go to Tags, hit New, and in this case, we'd select not Google Analytics, but Google Tag. Here we'd click on this little piece and select the ID variable. As you can see, by default, it picks the All Pages trigger for initialization. That's the one it should have. Let's name it, what would you call it? A GA4. Well, I call it Google Tag. In this case, we didn't have to create a specific trigger because Tag Manager already comes with some default triggers, like this one that fires on all pages. Why do we need to activate it on all pages? Because we need our GA4 code, the GA4 tag, to be inserted on all pages to collect all the information. If we do a preview now, don't hit submit yet, not yet. Let's hit preview. We always need to test and review everything when we make any implementation, because a number might be off or something in the site's URL might be wrong. There we are, continue. And as we can see, the tag has fired in the center. Let's navigate to another page, and on the side, it should load. Hit F5. Sometimes the debugger has been a bit glitchy lately. It wasn't like that before. Refresh the page. Sometimes it doesn't pick up the debug. You mean here? Yes, there. If the debug doesn't pick up or shows it as crossed out, like the tag isn't inserted, hit F5 to refresh it. But in principle, it's loading fine, it's firing. Good. Once we've confirmed we have the GA4 tag, the next thing we do is create our conversion event. In this case, it'd be users interacting with the chat with widget, right? Let's go to the preview. We're still in preview if it hasn't closed. Yes, here we are. In this case, just to note, I inserted this widget not with Tag Manager, but directly into the page, that code. Should we change that? Or what do you think? Actually, I recommend that the widget always be inserted directly if possible, if we have the means and access to the page. Why do I say this? Because some browsers or ad blockers might block Tag Manager, but it's very rare for them to block the page's code. All right, got it. So even if it's a tiny percentage, we should try to minimize that loss of data or functionality in this case. Perfect. If we don't have access to the page, we'd insert it with Google Tag Manager. But if we have access to the page and they can insert it, then do it on the page. All right? So just to confirm, we're on the page, we have the widget, we have analytics installed. Good. Let's do a preview of the page with Tag Manager. Back to Tag Manager, hit Preview. Yes, run the preview because we're going to see what events or actions fire in our Tag Manager, in our data layer, when we interact with that chat widget. Let's fill out the information. Put in our details, phone, and address. Hit Send. Now let's go back to the preview again in Tag Manager. Here we are. Hit Continue, and as we can see on the right, when we interacted with the page, an event called Chat With was generated. If we click on that event, click on the event up top, yes, there. Click up where it says APIC call. And we see an event was generated with the name chat with that we saw. That data layer event comes with information we'll use later, for example, for conversions. Because we have the category, the action, the tag, and then we have the name, email, and phone of the user. In principle, for GA4, what we're going to do is use that event as a trigger to send an event to GA4, a lead event, a potential client. Let's copy the event name, which would be chat with. No, not that one, not the action up top, the event. Oh, sorry, here, yes, there, wherever you want to copy it, yes, event. Got it? Copied. Let's go to Tag Manager. Here we are. Go to Triggers, create a new trigger. All right, here we are. Click in the center and look for the trigger type, Custom Event. Paste that event. What does this trigger do? When it detects that event firing, it activates the tags. In this case, we're not adding any extra conditions, just that the event fires. Let's name it. What would you call it? Event. Save it. Good, now we have our trigger. As I explained earlier, triggers are the conditions that need to be met to execute a certain type of tag or information we're sending to platforms.
Vamos a generar una etiqueta cuando detectemos que el evento chat with que salta cuando ha completado el usuario uno de los formularios antes de ser redirigido a WhatsApp, nosotros queremos mandar ese evento del cliente potencial o lead a nuestra plataforma porque nos ha dejado sus datos, ¿vale?
So we've got the trigger.
Ya tenemos definido, perdón.
Now we go to the tag. In this case, we'll create a GA4 tag, a new one. Up here, yes, Google Analytics, and select GA4 event. For the measurement ID, we'll use the variable we set up earlier. Why is it good to have a constant? Because if we change properties, we only need to change the constant. Great. And in the case of ad accounts, for example, imagine we have 20 conversions in a Google Ads account and we switch accounts. Having a constant avoids copy-paste errors where a variable might fail because a letter got left behind. And for the event name, let's put lead. I tried using lowercase. No worries. GA4 accepts it. It accepts almost anything. Well, there are certain symbols it won't allow, but to follow some norms, and now for the trigger, we'd use event chat with. Save it, but let's name it GA4 lead event. Always indicate where the tag is pointing. All right, save it. Yes, saved. Now, every time a user, well, right now it's in a testing environment, but every time a user fills out the chat with form, GA4 will receive the lead event. It'll receive it with all the default event parameters GA4 collects, like what page it happened on, the referring page. If it's from a campaign, it'll pick up the UTM source, UTM medium, etc. All those parameters are collected autonomously by the tool. We could add extra parameters to the tag, but since this is a class for beginners to slightly advanced, starting from scratch, we'll stop here. If we hit preview and do a new submission, preview loads. Yes, sorry, here we are. It's loaded. Perfect. Yes, send another one. There it is, GA4 event lead. Here we see the GA4 tag fired because it has to fire on all pages. And it also generated the event. If we click on the tag, click where it says chat with, yes, it shows the name and when it happened. Great, so we're sending an event to GA4. An event we can use as a key event or just for information. GA4, like other platforms such as Google Ads and Meta, is pushing hard for us to send user information whenever a user completes an action or whenever it's available. Personally, in the tracking projects I work on with the people I collaborate with, I don't recommend it as of today. Even though they keep insisting we pass the user data to the platform, why don't I recommend it? Because in the properties I see, every time these options are enabled, there's a lot more unidentified traffic and incomplete reports. On one hand, they ask for user data, but then they don't show you the information in the reports. They have it, but they don't show it to you because you might identify users. It's a bit counterproductive in theory and still not fully polished. For example, with Google Ads enhanced conversions, I do recommend passing user data. But for GA4, at least for now, I don't know if everyone will agree with me, there'll be different theories, but I wouldn't recommend passing user data to my clients or friends. So we'll leave this tag as is and won't work with user data yet. Next, if you're okay with it, let's see how we'd set up a conversion for Google Ads. Where do we go? Back to Google Tag Manager. Here we are. Go to New in Tags and create a Google Ads. Let's do one thing first. Let's create the conversion ID. Do you have a Google Ads account to test it with? Yes, or if you want, we can use a generic one. No, let's use one we have so people can see everything clearly. I mean, the goal here is for people to see exactly where things come from, so there's no doubt. All right, let's go to a Google Ads account if you're okay with it, create the conversion, and then configure it with Tag Manager. Here we are in a Google Ads account. Go to Goals Summary. Now let's create a new conversion action. We need to enter the domain. Put the URL. All right, here we are. Let's see if it works. Now we'd select Add a conversion action manually. Up top, select the category. In this case, it'd be Form or Lead Form Submission in Spanish. The next step asks if you want this conversion action to be primary or secondary. Yes, let's say it's primary because lead generation is important. The difference between primary and secondary is that it could be a campaign goal reflected as a conversion. For the name, let's put any name. Next, we can assign a generic value to this lead or not assign one. For you, does it matter? Or is it better to assign a value? In theory, the ideal thing is to assign a value, yes. I mean, we can estimate it with lead scoring strategies and such, quantifying all actions, even the small ones, within the platform. Perfect, let's put 1, always following a hierarchy of importance. Then the counter, what it's asking is whether it counts all instances or just one if a user fills it out twice. In principle, what would you recommend here? For contact forms, I usually recommend 1. If it's purchases, count all. If someone clicks the email 3 times, I don't want it to count 3 times. Exactly. Great, that's perfect. And then here below it says this account has it enabled, that it's managed at the bottom under conversions. What it's saying is that you have enhanced conversions enabled. When enhanced conversions are enabled, it allows that tag to receive user data that you can send from Google Tag Manager. When you configure it in the main conversion settings, configure enhanced conversions, it gives you 2 options. Either set up enhanced conversions via the Google Tag or via Google Tag Manager. In this case, we'll use Google Tag Manager. With this, we'd have the tag created. And now in the top tab, yes. It gives you the different options to insert that tag. We could insert it directly into the code. For example, imagine we have a tag we want to fire when users reach the thank you page. We could insert it in the code, and it fires when they get to the thank you page. But that's not the case here. In this case, we'd select Use Google Tag Manager, which is the third tab, and up top we see the conversion ID. That conversion ID is the same for all conversions we create in our account. It's a bit like the GA4 measurement ID. We'd have a unique conversion ID, and then below, there's a specific label that's a unique identifier for that specific tag. First, if you're okay with it, Cesar, let's copy the conversion ID, go to Tag Manager, and create a variable. Perfect, let's do it like we did with GA4. Why? So we can reuse it everywhere. New, constant, paste the value, and let's name it GADS conversion ID. The other one was measurement ID, this is conversion ID, calling things by their names. Save. It says invalid input. All right, hit Control plus F5 to see if no, it's not that. Try saving again. Sometimes when you have multiple GTM sessions open, it happens. Create a new one, constant. Here we said GADS conversion ID. Save yes, now it worked. What do we do next? When we start tracking with conversion tags, when we work with Google Ads tags. Let's go to tags and create the conversion linker. The conversion linker is essential to associate the clicks users make on ads with the different actions they take while navigating our site conversion linker. And we activate this tag on all pages. No, don't enable linking there. Oh, that's not it. That action adds a code to our URL when the user navigates. Some Google technical accounts recommend enabling it. I don't notice much difference. I enable it mostly when I have different domains. That's when I activate it with multiple domains in the same container. Should we activate it? It doesn't hurt. You mean here? Yes, there, enable it on all pages. Exactly, this needs to be on all pages. Save it. Name it Conversion Linker Google Ads first, so we know. Sorry for insisting, but I'm a stickler for this. Later, when you find a container with 200 to 300 tags, each with a name, sure, the second column shows the tag type, but it makes it so much easier. You put GA4, and if you have 200, you filter the GA4 ones. If you put Google Ads, you know that's what you called it. That's why it's important. Often we focus on the goal and don't think it has to be like programming. When it's not documented, you're lost. Let's create the second tag. Yes, it'd be the Google Ads tag. Back in the day, it was always Google Ads remarketing, the remarketing tag, but now they're recommending, and I'd recommend using the Google tag. Yes, the same one we used for GA4. Let's use it for Google Ads. What happens here? We don't put the ID directly. Look at the question mark. All right, here you'd need to put AW- and then the Google Ads conversion ID. And it initializes on all pages. Up top, well, it puts a name by default. It'd be no conversion, but we've put a Google tag, so Google Ads Google tag. Yes, that's what they call it, Google tag. Save it, good. Let's say we've inserted what we did with GA4. We've inserted the Google Ads tracking on the site on all pages. Now we'll proceed to create and configure the conversion we created earlier on the platform. Let's create a new tag. What type? It'd be a Google Ads tag. Yes, Google Ads conversion tracking. Or Google Ads conversion tag. For the conversion ID, we put ours, yes, that one. And for the conversion label, we put the second code generated when we created the conversion in Google Ads. Important.
Y en el conversion label o etiqueta de la conversión le ponemos el segundo código que nos había generado cuando creamos la conversión en Google Ads.
Este de aquí.
No, solo el código de abajo.
Sí, perdón, me refiero a esto, ¿no?
Aquí importante siempre cuando cortamos.
When we copy and paste, sometimes we double click to select, and there's a dash or something, and it only grabs part of it. Make sure once the tag fires, it's sending to the platform. So here it'd be paste and here conversion. Here we'd have the option to assign a value from here. You'd already assigned a value, right? Yes, if you assign a value here, since you'd set it to 10, if it doesn't receive this value, it'll default to 10, all right? But we won't dive into that now because it's not relevant. Down below, for the trigger, we'd use the same trigger we created earlier. One trigger can serve to activate tags for different platforms, which would be event chat with. Let's name the tag. Save it.
¿Guardamos?
Efectivamente. Le damos guardar. Bien, con esto, si ahora ejecutamos de nuevo la previa.
With this, if we run the preview again, let's run it because we want more information in this case.
Entonces estamos en nuestra página.
En nuestra página volvemos a cumplimentar, vemos que salta la etiqueta de Google Ads que acabamos de crear y nos detenemos un poco porque ahora queremos coger más información.
So we're on our page. I'll fill it out again.
Ahí estaríamos. Esto salta.
Nos vamos a la previa.
We see it fires, the Google Ads tag we just created fires. Let's pause a bit because now we want more information.
Ha saltado también el evento de GA4.
Eso es.
Ha saltado la etiqueta de vinculación de conversión.
There we are. The fires will remove that. We see the tag fired. On one hand, the GA4 tag fired, the GA4 event fired, the conversion linker tag fired, the Google Ads Google tag fired, and the event fired right when the tag detected the chat with event. If we go to the left sidebar, Cesar, and click through from the first to the last, yes, where it was in the event sidebar, here, go to the first one, hit the next one, from bottom to top, yes, from bottom to top, next. We see that on initialization, the page is loaded because we had it on initialization when we loaded the container. Perfect. They fire as we activate them. There's a series of generic events and others we use to trigger conversions. And if we then go up top to the page name, just above the 7, it shows all the ones that fired on that page. But know that they go in a sequential order depending on when the events happen on that page. Great, good. So we've confirmed that both GA4 and Google Ads are receiving the lead conversion. What do we want to do now with Google Ads that I recommended not doing with GA4?
Pues ya hemos comprobado que tanto en GA4 como en Google Ads están recibiendo la conversión de leads. ¿Qué queremos hacer ahora con Google Ads? ¿Y qué os recomendaba antes no hacer con GA4?
With Google Ads, we'd send the user data, unlike with GA4. Here we see it fires, we'll mark it as configured. If we scroll down, it'll say it's inactive, normal, because we just created it. Good, we'll leave it there for now. It hasn't received activity yet. Now let's go back to the Tag Manager preview. Don't close the preview. How do we pass information so that this conversion, which is currently normal, receives data as an enhanced conversion, user data? Go to the Chat with event, expand the data that appeared in the event up top. And in this case, to create an enhanced conversion, we'd need to provide that Google Ads tag with user information. How do we grab that information from this data layer? Well, like we did earlier with the conversion ID or GA4 measurement ID, let's create a variable, in this case a data layer type, to capture that information. First, copy the CV_email. Yes, that one, copy it. Go to Tag Manager, Variables. Create a new one, Data Layer Variable. Here we are. What does this variable do? It captures data layer elements by their name. In this case, this one. Name it DL_email. All together. Yes, like that. Save it. Now do the same with the phone. Go to the preview, copy the phone value. We said data layer.
Nos vamos a la previa, copiamos el valor del teléfono.
Hemos dicho data layer.
Here's the variable, and up top, name it.
Sí, ahí la tiene, y arriba le ponemos el nombre. Bien.
What do we do with this? That data we have in our site's data layer, when the event happens, we'd have it available in Google Tag Manager to use with any platform we want. The next thing we'd need to do to pass that data to Google Ads to the Google conversion is create a new, not a new one, sorry, I'm confusing you, a new variable, sorry, data layer, no, a tag, what type?
¿Qué tipo?
User-provided data, scroll down, user-provided data. Here where it says we have 3 types of user data collection. We could do it automatically. I don't recommend that because it might even grab an email from the page, like an email in the footer or header, and take that one. If there's no other option, you can test it, and if it grabs the right one, great, but in this case, we'll use manual configuration. We have automatic, manual, and code. The code is for advanced users. Here we'd put the variables we generated. Perfect, we've got both.
Esto sería data layer, ¿no?
No, este sería datos del usuario.
Save the variable. This would be user data. This is like an intermediate variable that the Google environment uses. You can use it for both GA4 and Google Ads, and it lets us use user data within that tag. You don't send the raw data directly. Let's go to our Google Ads tag we created earlier, lead event chat with. I think you created this one's for GA4. Go to the Google Ads for GA4, even though they also have the option to provide user data.
Evento chat with.
En la de GA4, aunque tienen también la opción de proporcionarle los datos del usuario, no lo recomiendo.
Claro, hemos dicho que no. Vale. Es GA. Eso es.
We said we don't recommend it, exactly. Click on the tag and let's configure it. Scroll down. There, in the option that says Include User-Provided Data from your site, click it, expand it, great, and here's the user data variable.
Muy bien. Y aquí está la variable datos usuarios.
Le damos a salvar.
Save it, and let's do another preview. I'm already itching to publish. Don't delete it, you have to be careful. Every time I create something, I publish it.
No tienes que tener autoguardado, se coge solo. Alguna gente dice, yo cada vez que creo algo lo publico.
No, wait a second. Let's see if it works now. Yes, perfect. All right, it says yes, continue, open it here. Exactly. Launch it. There it is.
No, espera un segundo. Vamos a ver si... Ahora sí, perfecto. Vale, o sea, ya dice que sí.
Here we see everything fired.
Lo tenemos aquí. Exacto. Lanzamos.
No, allí era el email, ¿no?
Eso es info. Vale, dirección. Ahí lanzamos.
Ahora nos vamos a la previa.
Eso es. Aquí vemos todo lanzado.
Y si clicamos sobre la etiqueta de Google
If we
Ads,
click on the Google Ads tag, the last one,
la última,
¿Esta?
de la Show More,
I clicked show by accident up top there, show. Yes, and now click up top on the right where it says
Eso es aquí, show more. Eso es.
Show More, y ahora
up
dale
top on the right,
donde pone, arriba a la derecha, donde pone names,
up.
values,
Oh, here it is. Here we have it.
arriba a la derecha, arriba.
Ah, aquí está. Aquí lo tenemos.
It's showing the data we're sending to Google
Estamos
Ads.
enviando a Google Ads.
If we went into the console, we won't get into that technical part.
No vamos a entrar en esa parte técnica y demás.
That data isn't sent exactly as we're seeing it here. That data is sent encrypted and tied to a server request with an M for email, for example,
Una petición al servidor, ¿vale? Y la lleva un EM, por ejemplo, para el email, EM y un pues,
Sí, parámetros no codificados.
and certain parameters that don't let you see the user data in that request. Here you can see it in the preview, but it's sent that way and configured as enhanced conversions. Let's hit publish to celebrate.
Vale.
Y con esto tenemos configurada lo que es las conversiones mejoradas.
Vale. vamos a darle a publicar para festejar esto.
I've got to go. I have something else at 6. Sorry, I have to run. But with this, it's a fantastic complete package. With this, you've got all the integration you need with the widget, for Meta, for everything else, because the trigger is the same, the user data is already captured to use however you want, and we've seen it all. For GA4, I don't recommend it because I don't do it. I'm not sending user data because it spikes my unidentified traffic. They ask for it on one hand, but then the reports are super incomplete because they say, well, you don't have enough data for us to show it because we'd have to personally identify users. So that's why I don't recommend it. If someone wants to test it, do it in a test environment. But this was kind of for that. This was for a business owner to have a manual they can follow, or someone who builds websites but has never run campaigns, or someone who works with WordPress and wants to start running campaigns to improve their clients' results. With this, you've got a guide. And above all, that's why not everything, because if there are no conversions, campaigns these days are worth very little. Traffic campaigns, click campaigns, or things like that. Nah, here you've done your homework. There are other solutions out there that don't generate this data that you guys do generate. I'm seeing it firsthand. And if someone isn't familiar with the environment, it might seem complicated. But the good thing about Chatwith is that it has that information readily available for the user. If the website owner doesn't have the knowledge, for people like me, tools that provide that info make it easy. Other tools are very closed off and it's hard to measure, and logically, if you don't measure, you can't optimize. Hey Kiko, a million thanks. I'll edit this now, we'll publish it, and I'll let you know as soon as it's up. Let's give it a little push. Sorry, I've got to run. Off to grab a coffee. All right, a million thanks.
Nada, ahora lo edito, publicamos. Y en cuanto esté te aviso y nada, vamos a darle un poquito de difusión.
Ahora que va a otra.
Sí, perdona, que me tengo que ir a otra corriendo.
Venga, tú tira, yo voy a por un café.
Venga, Kiko, oye, un millón de gracias.
Venga,
Hasta ahora.
hasta luego.